Well, thank you, Ranking Member Cantwell, and I want to thank Chairman Cruz for holding the hearing, all of you for being here, and as one person who loves our local news, I will say this is a really important issue and at the heart of each and every one of our communities, right? And I just want to say the media environment has changed dramatically since media ownership caps were first established and since Congress last changed them in 2004. While the ownership cap may need to be revisited to better align with today's media market, I want to be crystal clear. Just because large corporations like Nexstar and Tegna want to merge, it doesn't mean they can simply ignore the laws that Congress has put in place. In order for there to be a merger that results in ownership above the 39% cap, Congress would have to change the law. So I'm going to have my first question to you, Mr. Waldman. This isn't the first large media merger or media merger attempt that we've seen in recent years, right? So when massive mergers like Nexstar, Tegna have happened, what's been the impact on local jobs, consumer prices, our local newsrooms, and what happens if there are no if there aren't multiple newsrooms in one market? What happens to our local news? What happens to the flavor of our communities? And not just our jobs, our union jobs, or jobs around, but again, the fabric of our communities.
Well, you see in certain circumstances, you'll have two TV stations, and to a consumer, it looks like there's two different operations, and there may be even competitors, when it's actually they're using the same news broadcast, they're using the same content. So part of what happens with consolidation is you have the mirage of lots of diverse voices, but the reality of less and less original reporting. Mm-hmm. And whether on the question of whether or not removing the caps would lead to more situations like that or less, the evidence is more in the category that it's going to lead to less. You give someone money, it doesn't determine what they're going to spend it on. And if local news stations or station groups have more clout and more scale, there might be some that would use that for local news, but there's certainly no guarantee of that, and the evidence is actually in the other direction. And so you end up in places like Nevada where, if you look at the whole local news ecosystem, you have the repetition of the local TV, you have the newspapers declining, and the result is like a 75% drop in the number of reporters in Nevada.
And I think it's very sad for our communities and for our everybody who lives there. I want to move my next question to you, Mr. Leggett, because I want to mitigate the negative impact of the rules changes, because the FCC and Congress established media ownership caps to protect consumer prices, to protect media diversity, protect jobs in journalism. It is, again, I believe, really important foundationally to our democracy. And I recognize that as the media landscape changes, Congress should, of course, reevaluate whether the rules need to be updated. Things are always changing. So my question to you, again, Mr. Leggett, is if Congress changes or removes the ownership cap, how can we ensure that we keep media affordable for consumers, protect our local newsrooms, our journalist jobs, give them that independence to focus on stories that matter to the neighborhoods, to the local community, right? And just improve media diversity in those independent voices that really focus on what matters. And if the current rules in place aren't working today, how do we protect the values? What's our alternative?
Senator, thank you for the great question. I think first we need to level set with where we are today in local broadcast. If they are measured as a standalone, meaning local stations independently in each market, irrespective of who owns them, more than half of local broadcast newsrooms in this country are currently as a standalone not profitable. And that number is worsening every day. So the only way to ensure that communities across this country, many markets where individual stations would not be viable in terms of their own providing a local news, is to give those owners some scale so that they can take those efficiencies and plow them into local newsrooms. I also think we're being prejudiced here in this debate by what's happened in the newspaper industry, and certainly that is a cautionary tale. But in broadcast, the data shows the exact opposite, where over the last 10 years, where broadcast groups have been able to gain more scale, it has actually resulted in more local news. And as Mr. Waldman alludes to, if you don't want to measure that success by hours of local news, let's look at our newsrooms, the employment in our newsrooms themselves. We're employing more than 27,000 people in broadcast newsrooms. That's more than our print counterparts, our digital news counterparts. Broadcasters truly are the last bastion of local journalism. Those numbers actually increased after the FCC in the first Trump administration took some actions to relax those cross-ownership rules. So those broadcast newsrooms, even following the scale, some of the transactions that were done in the wake of those rule changes 7 years ago, we continued to grow our newsrooms. It's only been over the last 3 years that the numbers have flattened out a little bit. I'm looking forward to more scale that eliminating this cap will allow so that we can continue to grow those newsroom numbers.
Well, thank you. Finding that balance, it's going to be up to all of us. So thank you all for being here. Madam Chair.
Senator Young.